E te iwi tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā tātou. Tēnā tātou I roto I ngā tini āua tango te wā, e mi nei e tangi nei, ki te unga kōrero, tatu mai ki a tātou katoa e ui nei. Tēnā koutou. Kia ora tātou. Kia ora everybody. Che Wilson here from Te Pai Waho, and just a big mihi to everybody tonight as we continue to navigate the challenges of te mate korona. Hoi anō, back here again for number 4. Yeah, number 4, kaupapa on Tangihanga. So kāti, I'm going to do our karakia and we're going to get straight into it. Mai a maranga wakarangona te rangi e tū nei, mai a maranga wakarangona te papa e tako tuake nei. Mai are wakatupua, naku mai are wakatupua arangi, e ue nei ki te pau o te pai wao, e tū nei. Te nei te pō, nau mai te pō. Te nei te pō, nau mai te wānanga. E rongo o kairi ake ki runga ai, turuturo I te oramau ake a tīna, aumia ui e tāiki e. Tāiki e kia tātou, everybody. Kia ora tātou. Oi anō, e tangi ana ki o tātou mate, ki tērā mukapuna I tae, I te wikene, koutou ki raka te pauma. Tatu mai ki te tua ene I roto I a Ngāti Uenaku, Christine e soti, tēnā koe, e moe, o ki atu rā ki te waro unanga, tatu atu ki tērā kuia ki te pākira, e kui e wai teo. Tēnā koutou, e moe. E moe te moenga roa, te korikori, te wakara ia. Koutou ki koutou, tātou, te ui nei, I roto I tēnei pō, tēnā koutou, tēnā ui tātou katoa. Kia ora everybody, kia ora auntie, yeah, just a big mihi to everybody, and I'm just going to get straight into it actually. Kia ora lana. So tonight, our kaupapa is around the duration of the tangihanga and what happens during that whole period. And I'll cover some key points. But just to recap, kaupapa number 1 was an introduction to tangihanga. Kaupapa number 2 was preparing the body. Kaupapa number 3, taking the body home to the marae or home to the house. And tonight, the duration of the tangi and what happens. So we've brought the tangi, the Tupapaku back, and I suppose the first thing is, where does the Tupapaku lay? And many or most Tupapaku lay in either the parepuni or the mahau of the parepuni, parenui for others. And if you're in the parenui or the parepuni, it's likely that the body may move between the mahau on the outside and the wharepuni back inside. And where the body lays inside will depend on the tribe. And so some tribes, they will go right to the back of the house, to the Poutuarongo, and then other tribes will go in just to the right. That's common in the Te Arawa and Tainui areas, at least it's on the right of the door. And you'd need to talk to them more about their reasonings for that. There are some that stay outside the whole time in the mahau, and then there are others who will have wharemate, and some of those wharemate are permanent, and it's only where their mate lie, and they don't go into the wharenui, the wharepuni. And others will have a makeshift wharemate, like we do at home in Wanganui, and so it's a tent. And the simple reason for that is a separation between the living who live and sleep in the wharepuni and the wharemate, which is erected for purpose for that time. And so the location of where the body is important. A key other point is that it's always good to have a keka, somebody who goes out and explains what your tikanga is. And yet, we have texts and you can message people and all of that. But it is still good to have somebody walk over, explain it, nei te tikanga te marae, nei ngā uka aere. And as you do that, you give people a bit of comfort, especially if your tikanga is different. Like where I'm from in Whanganui and up north. And what do I mean by different? So in Whanganui, the manuhiri always speak first. And it often freaks people out. But the reason why manuhiri speak first is because we say, nā te mate I karanga. And so it's death that's called you here. So you are given the opportunity to respond to the call first. In addition, you've travelled such a long way. And so you also have that opportunity to respond to the call of the mate, to acknowledge the mate. And once you've completed all your speeches, the mauri returns to the haukainga to speak and to finish everything. And a key component of that is that we give that honour to you. And people freak out about it, one, because it's different, and two, you might not know the kōrero for the local area, which is why it's important to send a keka. In addition, up north, when you go north of Auckland, you go on, very rarely do you wait. You also make sure, and when you go on, your ope goes on, your group goes on, you hariru to the whānau pani, then you sit down, homeside welcome you, then you speak, and then if there's another ope outside, they don't need to wait until you're finished. They get called on, so they will cut through the proceedings, they will go on, and that carries on until there's no manuhiri. However, once your speakers have done your bit, in some marae you are allowed to leave, other marae you've got to wait until everything's finished. And there have been a number of explanations I've been told about that, and the key one is kia kaua e here te tangata pērā ki te hoiho. Don't leave people waiting outside, and don't hinder the expression of aroha, but go straight to share your aroha. Different for people who haven't experienced that, but those are two key significant variations, and then each tribe will have their own subtle variations as well. Another key thing throughout the duration of the tangi is allocating jobs, and not just allocating jobs as the haukainga, but when there might not be many people of the haukainga, it's then getting the whānau pani to also help. Because it's really important as whānau pani that when you know the numbers are low, don't ever expect to be served on. And even if it's your first time back to your marae, you've come home for a tangi, so that's a wānanga. And tangi are often the best wānanga out. So the allocation of jobs, it's all about manaakitanga, looking after your guests and upholding the mana of the Tupapaku, that's line and state, by looking after your guests. When there are heaps of numbers at home, then they can also look after the whānau pani. But these days, you usually only get that if it's a rangatira. Otherwise, often things can be lower numbers, and so you just got to pitch in. Everybody pitches in. There's the jobs at the back, in the kauta and in the warekai, gathering all of the kai, recording the koha, food koha, and then in the front there's the pai, and normally you would leave the kōrero for others to do, and whānau pani won't speak. And that's normally the tikanga, and you leave that there, unless there's no one else. And then you might have to speak. Some iwi, some hapu, because they're low in numbers, they'll have a roving paipai. And once you get more than one tangi at a time, it makes it difficult for that roving paipai. Koha, it's really important to record the koha. That will either be done by somebody in the whānau pani or somebody on the paipai connected to the marae committee, so that you can work together as a marae committee and the whānau pani to get the bills paid. There was a question a couple of weeks ago about where does the money go, and it depends on each marae. Traditionally, the marae ran all of the koha, looked after it all, and would allocate it all to pay for all of the expenses. Things have changed. What's laid out publicly on the marae or during the mihimihis as you go inside, that's all helps to pay for the bills. Traditionally, when it was either laid in front of the Tupapaku or different other ways, there are nuances to it, that would go directly to the whānau rather than to the marae. And so sometimes it would be done in a kokohu style. And so the kokohu style is often done by putting the envelope straight into the hand. And some tribes up north do that all the time, but those tribes that would normally lay it down, you only kokohu if you're close, if you're from there, or if you're going on there and no other manuhiri are with you. Also, make sure you keep an eye out on the paipai, because if it's a big tangi, the paipai often won't eat at all. Throughout the whole day, they'll have breakfast and that's it. And so make sure that you're tagging them in and out, so that if there's two kai kōrero and two kai karanga, you might need to just tag in and out, go and have your kai, go back and then relieve the other ones so that they can go and have their kai. And you've just got to work all of that out. Opening time. Sounds like a really strange kōrero, but it's quite common now for people to have a specific opening time. In the past, it was from sunrise to sundown, and now numbers have been allocated to that, depending on the paipai. If you're from the marae, you might get away with it going on late at night. It just depends on the area, and you have to do your own research to find out. If I'm not from a place, I won't go on at night. If I am from a place and I'm just going home, and due to work, things are challenging, and so I might go on at night, or just go through the back. Don't like to go through the back unless it's at night, but it all depends. And so some might just set a time and at least allow them to have their morning karakia, and then first on, first serve, and usually try and beat the crowds. When it's a big tangi and the cooks have not had a chance to spend any time with the Tupapaku on the last afternoon or evening, sometimes the pai will hold any other manuhiri to allow the cooks to file in and do their final goodbyes. And I think it's quite beautiful when you do see it at a big tangi, because they're slogging, they're just working so hard, and it's a good chance to acknowledge the cooks. Order of kōrero, I've covered a little bit of that already. And so paeke is just the home side and then the visiting side. Finish. Tikanga Whanganui is the complete opposite, visiting side, then home side. Up north, depends on how many manuhiri come on, but it's a version of Paeku. And then generally in Te Aroa and Tainui, might be also some of their neighbours, there's a variation of Tuatutu Mai. Seating plans around the Tupapaku. So the pani will sit on different sides, and each marae will have their own explanation as to where the family sit and where the other pani, usually those that have lost people recently or the queer, that are what my elders used to refer to as professional mourners, they will all have their seating, the appropriate places for them to sit. And then their seating plans for manuhiri. When the seating is just all one, you just sit there. When the men and the women have to separate, you take the note, take the cue from the haukainga. There's the other bit where you go on and you might be whānau pani or kirimate or immediate family, and you go on with an ope. Everybody goes on at least halfway. Usually during a tangi, you can go past the halfway mark and almost right up to the waremate. And then those that are whānau pani will go straight in to the house or right by the Tupapaku or the waremate, etc. And you just got to gauge that. Normally, you should know what you're doing. So if you're going to do that, then just walk. What's happened, though, is you now see people walking over from the home side to go and get them. When normally, if you're one of those people, you should be going to just go straight to the waremate. Hariru, there are some tribes where the men and the women hariru in different directions, and then you've got to weave in between each other, and you've just got to navigate that and let the haukainga direct you. Otherwise, others you just go in and hariru and everybody follows. The most important thing to note, it's a tangi, which means to cry. And we're so sanitized, and you don't really hear the aue and the wakatangitangi much anymore. But I encourage people to cry. Cry out loud, cry however you want to cry, but cry, because the crying allows you to get it all out. And as you get it all out, it just helps to relieve the pain. So cry. But that's it. That's it for tonight. Next week, we'll cover the funeral day, and then probably the burial and cremation as well, and then we'll cover the rest later on. So ka te ake, e mi I kau ana kia koutou katoa, I roto I tēnei pō. Hope this is helpful. Hoi anō, tēnā koutou, kia whakaere ake nei kupu ki te tā nui, orangi nui e tui o nei, turuturo I te whakamaua kia tīna, ui e, tāiki e kia tātou. Pō Māori re.